Chains of Velvet and Iron Part 1. Chapter 1. The Golden Cay. The humidity of the afternoon hung over the Las Sombras plantation like a wet shroud, heavy with the scent of magnolias and impending doom. Isabella St. Clair stood on the veranda, her knuckles white as she gripped the iron railing. At 22, she was the porcelain doll of the county, pale skin, raven hair, and eyes the color of a stormy sea. But inside, she was screaming, "You look beautiful, my dear." A voice drawled from the shadows. Isabella flinched. It was Don Rodrigo, her betrothed. He was a man of wealth and cruelty, possessing a smile that never quite reached his cold, dead eyes. He stepped into the light, twirling a cane. "The dress arrives from Paris tomorrow," Rodrigo continued, stepping too close, invading her space. "You will be the envy of every woman in the South, and the property of only one man." "I am not a plot of land to be deeded, Rodrigo," Isabella whispered, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. "Aren't you?" He reached out, his fingers bruising her chin as he tilted her face up. "Your father's debts say otherwise. You are the payment, and I intend to collect." He released her with a sneer and walked away, barking orders at the overseer. Isabella felt the bile rise in her throat. She needed air. She needed to escape the suffocation of her own life. She ran down the back stairs, lifting her heavy petticoats, fleeing toward the riverbank, the only place where the air felt her own. Chapter 2. The Shadow in the Water. The river was a vein of silver cutting through the dense cypress trees. Isabella fell to her knees at the water's edge, tearing the silk ribbon from her hair. She began to weep, the sound raw and unladylike. "Tears will not rust the chains, mademoiselle." The voice was deep, resonant, like thunder rolling over a mountain. Isabella gasped, spinning around. Standing waist-deep in the reeds, cutting cane, was Julian. He was not merely a man. He was a monument to strength carved from obsidian. His chest, bare and glistening with sweat and river water, heaved with exertion. He was a slave on her father's estate, but looking into his eyes, eyes of burning amber, Isabella saw no servitude. She saw a king in exile. "I did not give you permission to speak," she stammered, though her heart hammered a rhythm that had nothing to do with fear, and everything to do with a sudden, searing heat in her blood. Julian stepped onto the bank. He was tall, towering over her. He did not lower his gaze as the law demanded. He looked right into her soul. "You are crying because of him," Julian said, his voice dropping to a rumble. "Don Rodrigo, a man who sees the world only in terms of what he can break." "How dare you?" Isabella breathed, stepping back, though her feet felt rooted. "I have seen how he looks at you," Julian said, taking a step closer. The air between them crackled, charged with a forbidden energy. "He looks at you the way he looks at a prize horse. But you," he paused, his gaze sweeping over her face, "you have the spirit of a storm trapped in a glass jar." Isabella felt a flush rise from her corset to her hairline. No man had ever spoken to her with such raw honesty. It was dangerous. It was treasonous. It was intoxicating. "Go," she whispered, terrified of the magnetism pulling her toward him. "If they find you here, speaking to me, let them come," Julian said softly. "For a moment of truth, the lash is a small price." Chapter 3. The Storm Breaks. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of stolen glances across the fields. 2 weeks where Isabella felt the ghost of his touch, though they had never made contact. The night of the governor's ball, the sky broke open. A tropical storm battered the plantation, turning the world into a chaos of wind and rain. Isabella, unable to bear the suffocating heat of the ballroom and Rodrigo's possessive hand on her waist, feigned illness. She fled to the stables, seeking the comfort of her mare. The barn was dark, lit only by the flashes of lightning that tore through the cracks in the wood. She was not alone. Julian was there, calming the terrified horses. He turned as the doors blew open, and Isabella struggled to close them against the gale. Without a word, he crossed the distance in 2 strides, his powerful arms slamming the heavy wood shut, sealing them in the darkness. They stood chest to chest, the sound of the rain deafening outside, the silence between them screaming. "You shouldn't be here," Julian rasped, his restraint hanging by a thread. "I couldn't breathe," Isabella confessed, looking up at him. The lightning flashed, illuminating the scar on his shoulder, a brand of the brutality he survived daily. "I hate him, Julian. I hate him more than I fear. This, Julian asked, his voice rough. "There is no this for us, Isabella. There is only the abyss." "Then let me fall," she cried out. Destiny snapped. Julian groaned, a sound of tortured longing, and pulled her into his arms. It was not gentle. It was a collision of 2 worlds that were never meant to touch. His hands, rough and calloused, cupped her face as if she were a holy relic he was terrified to shatter. "Isabella," he breathed, his lips brushing hers. When he kissed her, the world dissolved. There was no plantation, no debts, no color lines, no chains. There was only the taste of rain and desperation. It was a kiss of defiance, a searing seal of a pact made in blood and shadows. Isabella clung to his shoulders, her fingers digging into his skin, realizing with a terrifying clarity that she would burn the world down before she let Rodrigo touch her again. Chapter 4. The Discovery. The morning sun brought no mercy. Isabella returned to the house before dawn, her dress ruined by the mud, her lips swollen. She encountered Rodrigo in the hallway. He was still wearing his evening clothes, a glass of brandy in his hand. "A long walk, my love?" he asked, his voice silky and venomous. "The storm. I was frightened," she lied, clutching her shawl. Rodrigo stepped forward and plucked something from her hair. A single piece of coarse straw. He rolled it between his fingers, his eyes narrowing into slits of pure malice. "The stables," he mused. Did you find comfort among the beasts? Isabella froze. I know he works the late shift in the stables, Rodrigo whispered, leaning into her ear. The African, Julian. Isabella's heart stopped. I don't know what you mean. Do not lie to me, Rodrigo roared, shattering his glass against the wall. I see how you look at him. I see the disgust in your eyes for me, and the hunger in your eyes for him. He grabbed her wrist. You want a savage? Then I will show you how we treat savages. He dragged her toward the window that overlooked the courtyard. Look. Down below, the overseers were dragging Julian toward the whipping post. He did not struggle. He walked with his head high, his eyes fixed on Isabella's window. No, Isabella screamed, tearing herself from Rodrigo's grip. Rodrigo, please, I beg you. Begging, Rodrigo laughed, a cold, dry sound. That is a start. But to save him, you will have to do more than beg. You will have to submit, completely. The wedding is tonight. Chapter 5, The Sacrifice. The chapel was stifling. Isabella stood at the altar, a veil covering the tears that tracked silently down her face. Rodrigo stood beside her, triumphant, gripping her hand so hard her bones ached. She had made a deal with the devil. She would marry Rodrigo, and in exchange, Julian would be sold to a kind master in the north, given a chance at freedom. It was the only way to save his life. Do you, Isabella, take this man? The priest droned on. She looked out the window. In the distance, she saw a cart leaving the property. Julian was on it. He was alive. I love you, she thought, the words echoing in the hollow chamber of her chest. Live for both of us. She choked out. Suddenly, the chapel doors banged open. A chaotic noise erupted from outside. Shouts, gunfire, the cry of revolt. The cart had not left. Julian had not gone quietly. He stood in the doorway of the chapel, having overpowered the guards. He held a musket in one hand, his chest heaving, a broken chain dangling from his wrist. He looked like an avenging god. Isabella, he roared. Rodrigo spun around, drawing a pistol from his coat. You filthy dog. No, Isabella threw herself in front of Rodrigo, just as he fired. The bullet grazed her arm, tearing through the silk of her wedding dress. She fell, a bloom of red spreading on the white fabric. Isabella, Julian screamed, the sound tearing from his throat. He raised his musket, not aiming at Rodrigo, but shooting the chandelier above the altar. It crashed down between the couple and the altar, creating a wall of shattered crystal and fire. In the confusion, Julian vaulted the pews. He scooped Isabella up in his arms, ignoring Rodrigo's screams of rage. You're hurt, he said, his eyes wild with fear. It's nothing, she gasped, clutching his shirt. Take me away, anywhere. To the swamp, he said, kicking the side door open. I know the paths. They cannot follow us there. Chapter 6, Beyond the Veil. Night had fallen in the swamp. The air was thick with mosquitoes, and the sounds of unseen creatures. They had found refuge in an abandoned trapper's hut, hidden deep within the labyrinth of cypress roots. Isabella lay on a bed of moss, her wound bound with strips of Julian's shirt. The firelight danced on their faces. They were fugitives. They had nothing. A bounty would be on their heads by morning. Julian knelt beside her, taking her hand. His large, dark hand engulfed her small, pale one. The contrast was stark, beautiful, and dangerous. "You gave up everything," Julian whispered, lifting her hand to his lips. "Your home, your status, your safety." "I gave up a prison," Isabella replied, her voice weak but steady. She reached up, touching his cheek. "I would rather be hunted in the swamp with you than a queen in that house without you." Julian looked at her, and for the first time, the hardness in his eyes melted, replaced by a love so profound it hurt to witness. "Then we run," he vowed, "north to Canada, to the ends of the earth if we must." "We will be chased," Isabella said. "Let them chase ghosts," Julian said fiercely. "Tonight we are alive." He leaned down, kissing her again, not with the desperation of the barn, but with the solemn promise of a husband. In the heart of the darkness, amidst the cruelty of a world that wanted to destroy them, their love burned like a beacon. To be continued.